Catapulting Commissions family. What's up, team? Welcome back to this week's episode of the Catapulting Commissions podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Garcia. Now, we have talked sales leadership for the past year and a half. We are coming up on our 100th episode, so it's a monument, and our guests keep getting stronger and better. Now, check this out. Our guest started her sales career when she was 10 years old in the streets of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. She is a lifelong hustler who has grown and become one of the most dominant personal development and marketing experts and empowerment coach in the U.S. Her first book, What Dog Am I, is available now on Kindle on Amazon.com. She has, Ricelli Mordecai has spent time as a director of sales training for one of the largest North American teams in a franchise industry, and she has utilized her time in leadership and sales in her research for her book, What Dog Am I? And we're going to talk a lot about that, because if you've ever used an assessment to recruit, to sell, just to run your business, you're going to want to hear what we talk about. What dog am I? Ricelli, welcome to the Catapulting Commissions podcast.
Thank you very much, Anthony. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited to have you here. So let's jump right into this. What dog am I? What's the premise for the book? I mean, I have to be honest with you. I've titling books. I know when we created the title for Catapulting Commissions, that was like the 20th reiteration of that book title. But titling something, you know, your title is supposed to stand out. It's supposed to draw somebody into you. And so I've looked at various different books. When I see the title, What Dog Am I? I mean, that just speaks to me. I'm a dog lover at heart, so it naturally pulls at my tug. But let's talk about it. What's the premise for the book?
First of all, I'm from Brazil, and I'm the oldest of three. And we have three siblings, all born within 3 years, same set of parents, same life circumstances. And we're all very different. Very, very, very different. So I've always been fascinated by personalities and personality types. My husband went on to get a degree in psychology. I've read and I have taken in every personality assessment that you can think of. And one of the things that always fascinated me about what makes people different, and then going into the book, was the idea that I wanted something simple that would help not only me to assess personalities, but something that will nudge my behavior to look at somebody and know who they are. So we fast forward a decade and a half later, after studying and being immersed into personality assessments. One night I woke up with this thought, middle of the night, swear to you, like one or something in the morning, with the thought of those 4 dogs. And the thought was very simple: is study these dogs, and you're gonna be able to understand people and match that with your research of personality. So I'm Christian, I'm a praying girl at heart, and I remember thinking, if this is a message from above, tomorrow at 11:30 will be better to hear this than right now, because I'm really tired. Lo and behold, the next day, 11:30 in the morning, talking back to me, I looked at my husband and I said, okay, I'm going to give you 4 dogs, and you need to match them with the personalities we've been studying. And by the last one, his jaw just dropped. And he said, where did this come from? You don't even like dogs. I remember him saying that. And I just pointed up, and he was like, this is game changing. He was like, I know everybody right now. I can look at a person, I can think of a person and know what dog they are. So it started as something so simple that every time that I trained, and you're right, with my years of corporate training, I was able to utilize this to, with a huge group of franchisees. And every time people will come into my classroom, they're like, this is so silly. And they will leave like, this is so amazing. I can tell what people are right away. And now I can nudge their behavior and have an intelligent conversation. So it really came from a need to get immersed into something that was simple, yet effective, so that we could communicate with people, understand what truly motivated people, and nudge that behavior to increase agreement gaining. So that's what the book is all about. It's a fun assessment that can be applied to getting your child to, do his homework, as well as one of my clients that produced $9 million worth of opportunities in 1 year after taking my training and coaching.
I love the story on how it started. Simple yet effective is how you described it. And the fact that this assessment can be applied to raising children, to 7-8 figure sales deals. I look at it and you're talking to a team of sales professionals right now, and we always join or go to a meeting with, how can I nudge a person's behavior? How can I influence somebody to this direction? So I feel like if I can pigeonhole or categorize somebody on a personality type, I can tailor my message, which I think is such a valuable skill for people to learn. You mentioned there's 4 dogs in it. What are the 4 dogs, and what are those personality types? Let's go high level on it.
Yeah, I love it. So we have the Saint Bernard, right? And we all know the Saint Bernard. It's the dog Beethoven from the movie, right? That carries brandy on his neck, not for his own personal party, but to give to victims of avalanche. So we have the Saint Bernard, which is calm, tranquil, the caregiver, the rescue dog, right? Motivated by a cause. Those are the people that seek balance, benefiting of others and the greater good. When they come in, they feel like a warm blanket on a cold day, right? They are, those 3 things that motivates them, the balance, the benefiting of others and the greater good. It impacts every decision that they have and they make in their lives. So that's the Saint Bernard. And we know, in opposite to that, we know that if we're sitting in a room right now, and if my door, your door opens and a Saint Bernard comes in, we know the energy that it produces and how it makes us feel. In contrast to that, we know that if the door opens and a Doberman enters, we're like, crap, what did I do? Where do I hide, right? And the Doberman is the visionary. The Doberman is the visionary, that one that seeks power, prestige, and profit. It's interesting talking about the Doberman. I'm a Doberman myself. I'm a Doberman that had to learn how to smile in order to drive collaboration. But when we talk about personalities, we talk about the refined version and the unrefined version, which we all have. So it's not like one personality is better than the other. It's how can you refine yourself knowing what truly motivates you, right? So we have the Dobermans of the world that, their energy is a bit scary. And when you're trying to sell something to them, you're like, am I on my top game here? You have to drive the behavior, nudge that behavior a bit differently, making it all about them, getting to the point, because that's how Dobermans, that's how they perform. That's how they see the world. What's in it for me? Then we have a contrast again, going with a Labrador, which we all know from, being the fun loving dog, the I just met you and I love you kind of thing. Everybody's your friend, that's my oldest son. That's my youngest brother. And the Labrador is the dreamer. Labradors are motivated by recreation, recognition, and reward. And you give them their fuel. Wow. I have a saying with one of my business colleagues that I say that since he is a Labrador, we don't create assignments, we make appointments of collaboration, because Labradors have a short attention span. So when we get together, we can collaborate and create something. But if we say, okay, you're in charge of this and I'm in charge of that, and let's meet in 1 week to see how things are going, it doesn't really go well. So those are the Labradors. And again, contrasting with the Labradors, we have the more serious ones. We have the German Shepherds. And we know German Shepherds as police dogs, the guys on a mission. They need a sense of completion because they're mission oriented. And German Shepherds seek stability, structure, and systems. That's what they need in order to perform. That's their emotional fuel. So when we look at those 4 very distinct and common dogs, we all, we are not talking about a mix of a this with a that. We're talking about 4 breeds that everybody can think of, relate to, think of the energy it produces, and can identify that in themselves and others. Of course, we make it sound it's so easy, but this is part of just this segment alone on personality assessment. It's part of a 4-hour training that I give, that with the book it helps people to really dive in and focus on the why, because most personality types right now and the way people see the world, it's more about behavior. So that's why people say, well, but people change. Well, you might change your behavior. You don't change who you are. I'm Brazilian. That's never going to change, And I talk in these terms because what truly drives you and fuels you comes from within, comes from you, who you really are, who you have always been, but recognizing that you can better yourself to be more refined and, go into, a Doberman as an example. We know, I know that we're going to have a huge number of people in the sales industry that are Dobermans, because they're high performance and they want that commission that's going to always get better and bigger. It's what drives Dobermans. But one of the things is that a Doberman can be assertive or aggressive. But if he pretends not to be a Doberman, says, no, I just love people and I love being around people and hanging out, right? They might miss the mark on the refinement that they have to make.
So there's so many layers to peel back here, right? There's the Saint Bernard, there's a Doberman, there's a Labrador, there's a German Shepherd. I can say, just knowing some of my audience and listeners, there's definitely some Dobermans here. Now, is somebody truly, as we go through this, I can't help but think, is somebody like pigeonhole? Like, if I'm a Doberman, am I always a Doberman? Will that change based on the environment I'm in? Will that change? Like, if I'm a Doberman and I'm surrounded by a group of Dobermans, do I become an alpha Doberman? Or will I say, okay, you know what? There's too much Dobermans here. I need to be like the Saint Bernard in this situation. Do people adapt, or is this really something like, hey, this is your core personality. This is who you are. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, of course. This is your core and this is who you are. You might learn different languages in order to survive, right? I'm Brazilian. My core is Portuguese. I've learned English to survive. Now, the fact that I have an American passport does not make me, a natural from America. I still speak with an accent, and my motivations and my favorite type of food is rice and beans. I joke about that so much, and I use that as a correlation because, yes, especially in the sales profession, we learn different languages. We learn to adapt. That's why people say, I'm everything. I'm a chameleon. When I hear that on my training, I always know I'm like, it's a Doberman in denial. They're trying to be everything. And I say that with a lot of respect because, number one, we're always a mix of two personalities, right? We're always a mix of two. Our first one is our core, which gives us our fuel. Our secondary personality is what I call the additive, that which given in small quantities can enhance performance. But who you are, you are. You might have to adapt to the situation and speak a different language because that is the language of your prospect. Because that language is what's going to increase, collaboration and agreement gaining. But who you are is who you are. You need to fuel it, and use that as an empowerment tool for yourself.
So if I'm using this, who I am, right? Like, how does let's just say, and I'm assuming I'm a Doberman, but I could be wrong. I don't know the rules yet, but just based on what I've learned thus far, how do I make that assessment on somebody in a relatively quick session, right? So if we've been chatting here for a few minutes and we talked a little bit before we went on air, and you're like, okay, I got a feel for you. You got a feel for me. A lot of this is similar to the sales calls that we make. How do I make that assessment on somebody, instantly, and how do I run with it? I mean, is there a set of questions I ask? Is there research I do in advance? I mean, how do I categorize somebody to the type of dog they are?
Well, the long answer is you take my training, and that's how you're going to be a master in this concept. The short answer is start with what people are not. Start with what people are not. Can you, you're looking at me right now, we're on video. You can look at me by my mannerism, by my tone of voice, by the speed of my voice, by the way I'm dressed. You can tell right away that I'm not a Saint Bernard. Mm-hmm. You can tell right away. I'm not calm. I'm not subtle. I don't speak like my mother-in-law, who is a sweetheart and 100% Saint Bernard. I'm not that, right? You might not know who I am right away, but you're like, she's certainly not a Saint Bernard. You might go also with, she might be Latin, but she ain't a Labrador. She's not carefree in the way she talks. She has a purpose. She has a rhythm. She is going for the kill, whatever you want to call it, right? So by a process of elimination, you know right away who I'm not. And with that process of elimination, which is something that I teach, but it's easy too, because you think about those 4 dogs, the energy they produce, you match that with a person, you can make that quick assessment. After you have gone through the initial layer, you go into the questions that can help you really dive a little deeper and find out, okay, what might this person be? And the best way, and these are sales techniques, but the best way to find out who people really are is to find out how they think about, how they talk about their jobs, their family, what they do for fun, right? The three things that the three components to finding out what's important to people. You know, how they talk about their family. If they're only talking about the accomplishment of their kids, oops, you know, versus the fun time they had at the lake, you know, if the way they talk about their jobs, how it validates or doesn't validate them, and the way they talk about fun. I gave a training one time and this woman was like, this guy was like, no, I'm a Labrador because I love to have fun. And I said, fantastic. What is fun like for you? And he starts describing it, you know, like, oh, I love to read autobiographies of scientists and you know, like he was so German Shepherd in how he talked. And people are like, dude, if that is fun for you, let me tell you, you are not a Labrador. You're a German Shepherd through and through. So I hope this answer, this kind of answers your question, but start with what people are not.
No, it completely answers the question. And by starting with people or not, you know, Catapulting Commissions family, I mean, that goes to one of the principles that we've talked in sales training, right? When I'm trying to negotiate a deal, I tell anybody who's worked with me, if I'm their coach, if they're on my team, I'm like, you're listening to what's not being said, right? It's easy to hear what someone tells you. The best sales professionals, the best salespeople are hearing what's not being said, like what hasn't come up yet. How come this person's avoiding going in this direction when we're doing negotiation or handling objections? In this same situation, you're saying, okay, well, let's start with what's not. And I love how you pigeonhole it, because if I look at myself, right, as you're talking this, I'm like, I look at myself, I look at my wife, I look at my family, job, family, fun. You are absolutely correct. If you have a 5-minute conversation with me and it's just talk about those three things, you'll learn so much about me, way more than just, you know, not talking about those things, because those are the three things that I think about as you say that you're passionate about. Like, it's gonna naturally come off: job, family, fun. Like, you can't fake or lie about that, and if you do, it's really easy to spot. Yeah. So let me gain some understanding here. So what dog am I? The assessment. Now, how is this assessment different from others? Because there are some other assessments that sales leaders and organizations have utilized, and I'm not going to name and list all of them. Catapulting Commissions family, you can do the research, but there are some out there that have a different direction. I've taken training on some of them. So what are the main differences between what dog am I and some of these other assessment types out there, or the other assessment programs?
Simplicity. Because the other assessments, it's amazing, because I hear that all the time, and I myself have experienced that. You go into a big training of the, you know, whatever assessment, and you leave thinking, my gosh, that man or that woman is so freaking amazing. Look at all their research and they are fantastic. And then you ask that person, so what am I? Oh, I don't know. But if you take the training and take the test, you will know. It's not simple. My 12-year-old can assess people in less than 60 seconds with what dog am I, because he starts with what people are not. In sales, do we really have the time to send a, 100 question survey to a prospect before we can have a conversation with them? We'll be done. Our job will be inexistent. We in the sales industry, which I believe everybody's in sales, because my true belief is that every conversation you have with somebody with a clear objective and where you want to drive results is sales. But that being said, we don't have that time. We don't have the luxury. We don't. We need to make assessments quickly and follow a process for communicating our message that will nudge behavior in the direction that we want them to go, is speaking in the language that will fuel our prospect. Plain and simple, which is what I'm doing right now, knowing that the majority of the people that are listening to this call are Dobermans. Get to the point. Talk about the numbers that this can produce. We don't have the luxury of putting our prospects through a lengthy assessment in order to collaborate with them. So it has to be simple.
I love that. The simple form, you think about some of these sales industries, and I look at, and it's not a secret, I have a long background in a medical sales background. There's, majority of my career has been in that industry. And in that industry, you sometimes only have a minute and a half to pique enough interest or gauge an assessment on the physician you're speaking to know how's this relationship going to go. Can I steer the conversation to the right? Can I steer the conversation to the left? And if you blow that one opportunity, it could be a year or two before you get it again. So starting with what people are not and keeping it simple. I mean, I hate saying this, but there's the old mantra, keep it simple, or keep it simple, stupid, right? Yeah. I mean, you hear it and I'm not going to bash the other assessments, because I know people who teach that, but you are correct. Some of the assessments are great. And I look at it in the aspect of if I'm going to evaluate somebody and I have a long-term, like if I'm going to get married again, should I put my future spouse through this long assessment analogy, right? Or can I go to my wife right now and say, hey, let's go back. Let's reverse a couple years back, 7 or 8 years back. Let's take this assessment and learn about each other. I don't know if I would do that, but that's the amount of time it takes versus what dog am I? It is point blank. Hey, what are you not? And let me proceed accordingly. Now, is there some watch outs or mistakes that people make when they do this, right? So if I'm a Doberman and I pigeonhole the person I'm speaking to as a German Shepherd or a Lab, is there some mistakes that people make when they make that assessment? Like, I mean, how do you validate that concern, or is it? And I know the answer is going to be join you for the training, because I think that's going to be awesome. But
no,
let's just give a little bit here.
It won't. I think that the biggest mistake people make is to see the world through their own personal lenses, right? If you really seek to find, Saint Bernards and Labradors do that a lot. They think everybody, my Labradors on my training, they say, oh, that person is a Lab. No. And Saint Bernards have so much grace within them that they think that everybody has that good Saint Bernard quality in them. So that's the first mistake. We need to stop seeing people through our own lenses, the lenses of who we are, right? So we might want to find a common ground, but a common ground comes from having the same objective and wanting to drive the same results, not by thinking that everybody is the same as you. I remember when I first came to this country, before we had Google Translate on our phones, before I even had a phone, that people really wanted to connect with me, and they would speak English very slowly. And I would say to them, if I don't know the word, you can spell it out. It would not mean anything to me, right? So that's our tendency to think that, people are just like we are. First mistake. Second mistake, I would say, is not asking, not peeling the layers, not going deeper, right? Asking, we talk about that in sales all the time, is stay away from the yes or no questions. That's left for the last part of gaining agreement with others. We want to know the whys. The why people do what they do is what really tells me who they are and what truly motivates them. So instead of the what, going for the why in your interactions. But why? But tell me more about that. Interesting. Why? That helps you to get the guards down, because there's one subject that each one of us love to talk about, and that's ourselves. So when you get the walls down through the why, it's also going to help you to find out who people are.
I love that. Two mistakes, right? One, assuming everyone is like us, assuming everyone has those same behaviors, same set of lenses. Two, we don't peel layers. You're not asking enough questions. And it's almost, and I hate saying this, Catapulting Commissions family, but it's almost, if you're jumping the gun without peeling layers, to me as a consumer, you're not comfortable in your process yet. You're not comfortable with your product. You're not comfortable with the amount of the negotiation. It could be, and I know this wholeheartedly fact, I recently had a conversation with someone who was negotiating the largest deal of their career. And I simply said, if you go into this meeting with the thought of I'm negotiating the largest deal in my career, you're going to forget everything you've ever learned about sales, and you're not going to start to peel the layers back. You're going to jump the gun, and it's going to tell the prospects that you aren't comfortable with this negotiation. So if those are the mistakes that you're making in trying to identify what dog am I mean, it comes across straight to the person you're working with. Would you agree with that?
I think that there's a lot of truth to that. Seeing people through our own lenses will cloud our thinking, and I say that because in our family, I had an interaction recently here. My mom is a very strong German Shepherd. She's an attorney. I'm a Doberman. And I asked her a simple question. did you do this? And she pulls out, her Bible of notes, wanting to tell me the story. And I wanted to, be courteous. And within 60 seconds, because she said to me, "You're not paying attention," my brother said, "Yeah, because she's a Doberman and she asked you one question. It's a yes or no. Give her the answer first and then ask if she wants to hear the story, right? Don't talk to her in the language that's important to you. Talk to her in the language that's important to her." I think that that's another mistake. We need to take a step back when we're negotiating and really think of our prospect for who they are and speaking the language that will nudge their performance, and not think about that as a method of manipulation. It's not manipulation. That's honoring people. If I was speaking Portuguese here right now, because it's comfortable for me, because it's my first language, I would not be honoring you guys. I would not be honoring the audience, because it's all about me. So don't make it about you. Make it about people by finding out who they are, to really have a conversation that will fuel them and will open doors for collaboration.
I love it. Off self, on purpose, right?
Yes.
And I hear you say that, and I hear the message, and that's all I can think of is, if you take your business off yourself and you make your business on purpose, on people, it comes across natural, it comes across authentic, it comes across effective. So I love that. Speaking of fuel, right? I've heard you mention the word a few times, emotional fuel. What is that? Help me understand that.
I love that. I was thinking, that was my first thought when I woke up this morning. Well, people talk about emotional intelligence a lot, which I find the concept fantastic. But if you don't know where your emotions come from and what fuels your emotions, you're in trouble. I think of people as cars, like a car. We are in a society right now that we're like, oh, the 8 players, that one has a drive, that one is stuck. But the truth is, a Ford on the right fuel will perform better than a Ferrari on the wrong one. That's the truth. So it's not about the car, it's about the fuel. You give the fuel that's correct for the car, and you expect the performance that car can produce. So with those concepts, when we talk about emotional fuel, when we take a deep dive into the personality assessment of who each one of the personalities are, and we help people feel comfortable with who they are, catering up to that which fuels them, fuels their emotion, fuels the core of who they are. We talked about the Labrador being a dreamer and being fueled by recreation, recognition, and reward. That's their fuel. So when I talk to a Labrador, that's what I need to give them. If I give them power, prestige, and profit, I'm putting a fuel into them that will break them down, because that's not what motivates them, right? My Labrador friends are not motivated by money. They're motivated by time freedom and collaboration. That's emotional fuel. If you don't know what fuels you, and if you don't go after that, at one point or another in your life, you're either going to be A, stuck, or B, given the wrong fuel and break down. And I see that in all my projects, from a project that I have with the Brazilian community on health and body transformation, to my big corporate clients and, driving performance for themselves and their team. If people are not aware of who they are and what fuel they need to take in, or if they are in denial because, oh, it's so uncomfortable to be that personality, and I don't want to be associated with that personality because my Uncle Frank was a terrible person and he was just like that, right? If we neglect that, we are bound to decrease performance and eventually break down, because we're not being true to ourselves.
That emotional fuel you give, I can't help but think, as a people manager, right? A manager of people, of employees, if you are in that position, Catapulting Commissions family, it's almost a benefit for you to truly learn what that fuel is. As you're saying that, the fuel will have somebody break down. I look back at my career and some of the people I've managed and mentored, and I'm like, some relationships went well. Some, for the life of me, we couldn't connect. And I look at it and I'm like, maybe, I was feeding them the wrong fuel. Maybe they weren't motivated by what I thought they were, or even better yet, some people may have been like, this is what motivates me, because they think that's what I want to hear. So then I respond that way, when the truth is that's not really how they're motivated. That's not who they are. And it's just a vicious cycle between employee, employer, sales rep, sales manager, whatever that relationship is. If we can't truly dictate what the fuel is, then you're not going to get the most out of your people, which comes to that point where you find somebody who is complacent. And we've talked about this before, Catapulting Commissions family. Complacency is a horrible thing in sales. It robs you of profits. It robs you of commissions. But if you don't know the fuel to get that person out of that state of complacency, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, we could push somebody further away, correct?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think that there's another component too that sometimes we remove from the equation, not necessarily because we think it's wrong, but because we're not aware of this idea of upbringing and raising. You know, like the way people are raised doesn't necessarily mean that that particular behavior that's associated with their background is what fuels them. I was having a conversation with a Doberman friend of mine who is from Brazil, so very much into, you know, parties and social gatherings and behaving like a Labrador, if you will. And as we were going through the layers, I'm like, so why is that important to you? And why, and why, and why? And she gets down to, I wanted to be seen and feel important, right? Dobermans want to feel important. German Shepherds want to feel useful. Labradors want to feel included. And St. Bernards want to feel needed. So you go through those layers of engagement, and you're absolutely right. And one thing that I think that you might have missed on your amazing list of, you know, driving performance is a lot of people don't know who they are, plain and simple. Their behavior and their view of the world might have been really influenced by their upbringing and the society that they belong to. I mean, I was having a conversation with a St. Bernard friend of mine that she said, I think it's just so unfair that in the Christian world or in the world of doing good, they expect women to behave like a St. Bernard. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so right. And if that was my ticket to heaven, whatever people want to call their heaven, I will be doomed. I'm screwed. I'm done because I'm not one of them, right? But can I be a person that does good, not being a St. Bernard? And the answer is yes. Well, but I love people. Good job to you. You're a good human being. Your parents raised you right. You have good values. But that does not make that is your motivation, right? So really going back to who you are and being fueled by that. Okay, so I'm a German Shepherd. I like to feel useful. Great. You don't like to feel needed. Well, but I want to help people. Yes, help people with your need to feel useful, because that's what's going to fuel you, or whatever variation of that is for your own particular dog personality.
I think there's so much to peel back there. We're going to come short on time, but as you say that, I think about those relationships that you have with people, and people being confused as to who they are, and what motivates and what fuels them. So I'm going to ask a different question, different direction, and it's not completely sales driven, but it is personality driven. You know, Catapulting Commissions family, I know a lot of you out there are like me. We're parents. I have kids. How do I mean, will my kid evolve on their personality type? Will my kids start as, because I think right now, you know, maybe some of my kids are, maybe they're St. Bernards, right? Because they're really like passive, but as they're starting to hit these teenage years, I mean, oh my goodness, they're like part Doberman. Just, I mean, it's a little bit of a growing persona. Can this be applied in the home life, right? How can I use this to, because let's be honest here, raising kids and raising a family, and I'm going to go a little off topic of the catapult, but it's a sales skill, right? We want to influence our kids and want to nudge their behavior to be in the right direction. And I've learned that, you know, if one of my daughters, if I tell her, hey, do this, she's not going to do it. The other one, if I tell her, she'll do it. Likewise, the other one, if I you know, let it think it's her idea, oh, it's the greatest idea of life. So can this be applied in that home life?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because again, with the idea of driving performance, nudging behavior, going to what you said, will they change and who they are? I have a little niece, she's 3 years old, and there's no doubt in my mind that she's a Doberman, because it's all about her. She's bossy and opinionated, and we already know, right? Her sister, in contrast, is more, you know, fun and loving. So do kids change? People evolve, but they don't change. So when you use this in order to motivate your kids, you're going to know right away who they are. And I've known that my oldest is a core lab from the time that he was born. And I know that my youngest is a core Doberman, and we work with them in that manner, right? And we, using that for a family concept, you guys, letting kids be who they are. I had a conversation with my oldest one time that he said, Mom, I'm not you. I'm not a Doberman. I probably won't be the richest person in town and out of my whole friends, but I will have friends and I will have fun. And that's good for me. And I had to go back and say, yes, you're right. I can't tell my son to do something. I have to say, let's do it together. And when we do it together, he does it. But if I say, go and do it, it's not what fuels him, because he's fueled by feeling included and having that fun component to his Labrador. So using that with the family will help us all as parents, will continue to help us to raise individuals that are okay with being who they are, regardless of who their parents are or the society that they feel like they are pushed into that has a set of rules or expectations.
I love it. I love it's simple. You said it earlier, it is still simple. And you look at it in the aspect of kids, raising kids, Catapulting Commissions family. If you are in a position with kids or family, that's the first influential decision that you can influence. You can nudge a behavior there. And if you can nudge a behavior there, you can nudge a behavior with the prospect. If you can nudge a behavior with the prospect, you can nudge a behavior at a bigger deal. It just keeps rolling up, but it starts at the purest, simplest form. And that's what I'm taking from What Dog Am I, which I love how simple it is. I love that there's only 4 dogs and not 40, because there's a lot of assessments that have 40 different personality types. And I've joking when I've taken some of these assessment programs or classes, been certified, I'm like, hey, I gotta be honest with you, if I'm supposed to learn all 40 of these, like I may pass a test, but 6 months from now, I'm not going to remember this like in the field. I'm not going to remember this when I'm in the middle of my negotiations. Like I need something that is simple. And I love that. So Ricelli, thank you for joining the Catapulting Commissions podcast.
Thank you so much.
How does my family and my audience, how do they connect with you? How do they learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the easiest way to connect with me, that's easy to write down, it's on Instagram. You can find me at Coach Ricelli, Ricelli. You find me. My Instagram profile is more into lifestyle collaboration and empowerment. If you want to see the serious, most business-like side of me, you can always find me on LinkedIn. That's where everything is held with my professional life with LinkedIn. Ricelli Mordecai, Mordecai. You'll find me over there. I think Anthony is going to put some links here below as well. And my book, What Dog Am I, is on Amazon. Right now, it's only available on the Kindle version. So if you write "What Dog Am I?" with a space word Kindle, you will find me there.
Awesome. Catapulting Commissions family, Ricelli is correct. You will see those links in the show notes. You will find her Instagram, find her LinkedIn. You will find the book, What Dog Am I, available on Amazon through the Kindle version. Ricelli, we wish you nothing but abundant success. I'm glad you joined us today. I look forward to seeing What Dog Am I continue to grow. Catapulting Commissions family, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you next week.